Donna's here.
Hey, Don.
Hi,
Hey, Donna, can you hear me?
Yes. Hey, BJ.
Yes.
Sometime you can stop over my house or come in. I need to get you to sign
Yep.
the minutes and the claims and all of that, if you don't mind.
I'll come by. Are you going to be, do you go in tomorrow? Will you be there?
Not in the morning, I won't. We got a Board of Public Works and I'm just going to do it
Okay.
at home.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll work that out with you. It's fine.
BJ, just call me ahead of time because someone will be here all day.
All
and
right.
the doors aren't open, but if you call me, we'll let you in.
Okay.
And I'll show the girls the documents.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll make it work.
Yeah. Tree will be here too.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Somebody will be here.
Yep.
Somebody will be
That'll
here
work.
for you.
That'll work. It makes it easy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and hit the record.
Are you? Okay. So she's starting to record. Hi, Gwen.
Hey, Donna. Hi, everybody.
Hi. Yay, everybody made it. Except I don't see Derek. Is it because, hang on. Let me just do this.
You're on speaker view, so it's only gonna pop up.
Yeah,
Okay.
you got to hit all speakers. Yeah.
Ah,
There
got it. Okay. There we go. Now, and Jill.
See
Hi,
me now?
Jill. Yeah, I can see everybody now. Hi, Donna. All right, good deal. Do what? Let me see. Oh, it's 6:30. All right. I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Charlestown Redevelopment Commission. It's May 5th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of the Allegiance. I brought a flag. So I printed it out. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, for all.
Thank you. I always wanted to do that. Oh, yes. If you are not actively talking, go ahead and mute yourself. And if when you want to talk, just mute. Just a few announcements. This is only my second Zoom meeting that I've had because I'm on Teams, Microsoft Teams. That's all the meetings I've been having. So just mute yourself. Since this is a Zoom meeting, I'll be doing roll call. So I'm going to go ahead and actually take the roll call, and I'm going to do it in alphabetical order. Derek Combs is present.
You want to say here?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you. Gwen Mosier.
I'm here. I'm here.
I see you. John Spencer.
Here.
Okay, got John and BJ Steele.
Yep, I'm here.
Gotcha. All right, good deal. All right, I am going to, everyone has been provided with copies of the minutes and claims. I would like to combine those so we can just make one motion on those for the approval. And I would entertain a motion to approve the claims and the minutes of the March 3rd, 2020 meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I have a first by John Spencer. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by BJ Steele. Is there any discussion? Any changes? Or any questions on the claims? No one? I did have one small change, and it's actually, so I apologize to Nancy in advance. She has Josh Hillman's name spelled incorrectly. She has Josh Hillman, and it's actually Hillman with an H instead of a T. So I would just like to make that note that we can improve those with that small correction. All in favor? Oh, wait, I got to do roll call, don't I? Sorry. Derek Combs. You can say yes or no.
Yes.
Gwen Mosier. take yourself off mute. You're on mute, Gwen. Okay, you're still on mute if you can hear me, Gwen.
Gwen, you can temporarily hit spacebar to unmute it.
Thank you, Paul. He's having technical difficulties.
Sorry, I hit something. Lost you all. Anyway, I think I'm supposed to say yes or.
Okay, yes. All right.
Oh, gosh.
John Spencer,
Yes.
BJ Steele.
Yeah.
Thank you. Motion approved unanimously to approve the claims in the minutes. Is there any public comment? Anybody? No public comment. The city hasn't received any public comment on the meeting tonight. So I'm going to move forward and go ahead with the consultant reports and have Paul Wheatley present the Wheatley Group's report.
Thank you, Donna. I know that there's been a couple iterations of this emailed out to you guys, and we try to do it as up to the minute as we can. And so I'm referencing the last one that Jill and Donna had sent out. As you guys know, we've got an interested developer looking at a multifamily project on a brownfield site in Charlestown. The Indiana Office of Community and Housing Development delayed the application deadline from 120 days from when the governor lifted the stay-at-home order. And so where previously we thought that the developer would be submitting July 1, with the COVID-19, it's actually pushed that submission into what I believe to be now late August, early September, depending on when that actually gets awarded. So what that does is, in effect, it takes a couple months for ICTA to deliberate on the applications and announce who's been awarded. So effectively what that's done is it's pushed that project out more than likely, if it gets awarded, to a spring timeline. So just wanted to make the commission aware of that. We do have the retail commercial project we mentioned at the last meeting. They are still under site control. They have extended their due diligence period and still working through that. So that was a positive sign. You know, the ARC project, Renaissance project, is still rolling pretty well. I mean, we've done several, you know, windshield tours through there. Other than weather, there appears to be no visible COVID delays, and, you know, through discussions with Mr. Sams, we've confirmed that as well. So wanted the commission to know that there hadn't been any major issues there. JTL has been working, and Josh is going to cover that a little bit later in the meeting, on some design work for the acceleration deceleration lanes at Coomer Way. I know he'll cover that here in a little bit. And we've also been working with Josh on a number of potential development sites, how we get sewer there. It ranges from everywhere from an industrial to single to multifamily as well. So Josh has been awesome, especially through this COVID process, and working with potential developers who are looking to invest in Charlestown. The city has engaged Baker Tilly to work at the mayoral council level. Baker Tilly is a financial advisory firm. Previously in the past, we had used a firm called Reedy. We certainly think that there are some synergies to having the same financial advisory firm represent different arms of the city. There are two different scopes that we'd asked Baker Tilly to look at. Those are on the agenda a little bit later, and we'll discuss those in more detail as well. Jill put together a packet of information for them on some of the TIF parcel questions. Like, we've done a review of all the TIF parcels, all the TIF districts created. Jill put together a nice package for them. They built this scope around that. So Jill's done a really good job leading that up for us. Jill also put together, and Donna, thank you and your office for being so helpful. But we put together the redevelopment report that is due. That has been submitted to Ms. Coomer's office. And so that's basically a statement of the commission's income and expenses and kind of how we, went about our business. And that's what I would consider to be the statutory minimum. What you're also obligated to do over the course of this year is have a annual report for the commission. We thought it made most sense, instead of trying to do that on a Zoom meeting, to doing that report, since we're not bound by any specific date on that report, doing it hopefully what will be at the June meeting. So Jill's heading that up for us as well. I would just add one more thing here. So the Duke Energy grant, we actually had a meeting with the Christianity folks there. They were very appreciative and thankful for the commission taking the lead on that. Talked to them and Josh Hillman today about some different potential layouts. Jill's been heading that up for us as well. And I'm going to mute myself here and let Jill talk about the community's COVID-19 response, because she's done an excellent job of keeping us at the forefront with Okra and keeping us in line for grants. So I'm going to mute myself now, and Jill, take it away.
Thanks, Paul. So on the first week of April, Okra Office of Community Rural Affairs announced that they were going to have an immediate response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Their immediate response is to use existing program money that would normally go to planning grants, blight clearance, public facilities, anything that wasn't water, stormwater, wastewater, that they were taking their excess program dollars and putting it out in a variety of ways so that cities, towns, and counties could utilize that. Some of the ways that you could utilize it would be if you needed additional money for testing, or say the city of Charlestown needed to set up a mobile hospital or something along those lines, directly testing or benefiting, buying supplies for those on the front lines dealing with pandemic. Another way that you could use that is maybe as a food delivery service to help make sure that the vulnerable populations had the food and supplies that they needed. And there is also an economic development component, where as if a city or town or county already had an existing revolving loan fund, and they could apply for money to recapitalize that and loan that out to businesses that were affected by COVID-19, as well as a grant program that functions the same as a revolving loan fund, but it's a grant. So if you didn't have a revolving loan fund set up, then you could apply for a grant to give out grants to businesses. The underlying factor here is it is Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG money. There are federal rules and requirements. The main requirement, since it was a regular program funds, is it had to benefit low and moderate income persons. There are a variety of ways you could do that. So when I reached out to the mayor, she was very interested, and I think, and Don Ennis as well, as far as looking into, and John, I know I talked with John Spencer about it, to set up 2 different applications. One would be for a food delivery and hygiene kit service that the city would run with a not-for-profit or a combination of not-for-profits. And then the other was an application to receive one of those grants to provide grants to small businesses. The application amount for the delivery service was around $48,000, and the application amount for the grants to small businesses was $60,000. That was submitted last week. About 2 days later, the Okra sent out an email that said they had run out of money, that if you received one of these emails, your application was put on hold, and they would wait until they found out if they had additional money through the existing program, which some of these communities may not actually be able to meet the low mod income requirements when it comes to giving out grants or loans. So they may get some of that money back, but they also are waiting on from the CARES Act, for those of you who may be familiar with that, HUD gets, I forget if it might be $4 billion nationwide. I can't remember the exact amount. I think the state of Indiana gets 18 million of that. And Okra is not either sharing or doesn't know how they can use that money yet. So once they find out how they can use that money, since that's from the CARES Act and not their regular program money, then they may be able to use that money to fund these applications that are on hold. So they're just going to keep those now until they find out when that money is coming and what they can use it for, or until they have additional program money. So those projects aren't dead per se, they're just on hold right now. And I'm also trying to keep an eye on what other funding sources are available to maybe meet those needs in the meantime. That was enough
Thank you,
to put you
Jill.
all to sleep, so.
John, go ahead.
Josh or John?
John had a question, I think, for Jill, but I think
I
he's
just said thank you. Thanks for the work she did.
okay.
You're welcome. I wish it would have turned out a little bit better, but it's not, you know, at least there's still a lot of opportunities out there. There's more money coming. I think there will be at least one more wave, if not 2 waves of money coming. It just probably won't come fast enough to do what we need to do right now.
Thank you for doing that, Jill. And thank you to the Wheatley Group as a whole for doing that at no additional cost. So we greatly appreciate that. I did have a question for Paul. Are you seeing, with COVID-19, how is development? Like, is people still interested? Is it slowing down? Or how is COVID-19 affecting, per se, our RFP process and interest just in the city in general for development purposes?
Great question. It's a mixed bag. We have seen single family development, neighborhood development seems to be still pacing strong, you know, both in terms of the folks that we're talking to spec home loan applications that we see kind of come through the bank. I wouldn't be telling the truth if I didn't say that there is a little bit of a chill over thing for sure, from, you know, maybe not getting term sheets back as quickly as what, you know, a developer might be used to. I think the light industrial sector, anything related to e-commerce, is going to be strong. I think given, you know, the amount of industrial warehousing still going on. I mean, River Ridge is still transacting land transactions there for a lot of different development opportunities. And obviously that spurs a lot of the ancillary investments as well. To directly answer your question, it's probably too early to tell, but I think with the reopening, I mean, we dug ourselves a deep trough with shutting down the economy. And so to fill that back in and kind of ramp back up, it is going to take some time. But from what I'm hearing from both the multifamily opportunities, the single family, and the industrial sectors. Now, widget manufacturing and things that aren't related to e-commerce are struggling. But it's just going to depend on how this reopening works. It's going to depend a lot on what's going to happen in the fall. You know, are we looking at a V, or are we looking at a W, or God forbid, multiple W's? So there's still some of that going on there, but I can tell you projects specific to Charlestown, I can only count to one I know of. It was more of a retail dining establishment. And so obviously anything related to food, you know, is a little bit speculative at the moment, but that's the only thing that I know of that has died on the vine, so to speak, during this COVID process. So I don't know if that answers your question fully or not, but we've not seen anything that's just fallen by the wayside directly related to it, which I think is a positive.
That is a positive. Thank you for that. Are there any additional questions for the Wheatley Group for Paul or Jill? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move forward and have Josh Hillman give the report from Jacoby Tubes and Lance.
So Paul has covered quite a bit of it included in his report. We have been supporting with utility evaluations, feasibilities for a number of projects. We've also looked at access to projects and things of that nature for future and proposed developments. Coomer Way, as he referenced, middle of the month, we had our survey crew out at Coomer and 403. They were picking up all of the elevations, picking up the road, utilities, other conflicts in the area. Since then, we've worked on the design. We have submitted a preliminary layout to the county engineer, Brian Dixon, to request his approval. We had some communication with him today, and he gave us the thumbs up that the route we were going would satisfy the county's desire for 403 and Coomer Way. So If the Redevelopment Commission desires, we're about a week away from being done with a set of plans for the acceleration, deceleration lanes. So if you all desire, we're glad to put it out for quotes here over the next month, so that we could have quotes to report back at the next meeting. We currently believe we're less than the $150,000 quote threshold that would require public bidding. This would be to solicit 3 quotes from contractors that the city of Charlestown typically uses. So Donna, I'll leave that up to you all. If you'd like us to go forward with that, we'd be glad to do that over the next month.
Okay. Are there any utility relocations involved in that project, do you know, or have you determined that yet?
There's some potential conflict with water main depth.
Mhm.
As we're adding fill over top of an area just to make sure that we don't end up with utilities that end up too deep there. But we'll be coordinating a number of those things here over the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. All right. Are there any additional questions for Josh? No? Okay. With that being said, I would entertain a motion to allow JTL to move forward and solicit quotes on the Coomer Way project.
I made that motion.
I have a motion by BJ Still. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Gwen. So I have a motion by BJ Still, a second by Gwen Moser. We'll go ahead and do the roll call. Yes or no? Derek Combs,
Yes.
Gwen Moser,
Yes.
John Spencer,
Yes.
BJ Steele.
Yes.
Okay, motion approved unanimously to go ahead and start that. So Josh, if you would go ahead and continue that process and then come back with those quotes to us.
Absolutely.
That would be great. Thank you. Is that all you had, I think, Josh?
That's all I had.
Okay, so we kind of combined your report with the old business on the update on the Coomer Way project. So for old business, we have Paul Wheatley update on the Depot Street Revitalization Project, the phase 1 and hazard materials assessment.
Sure. Jill has been doing a great job on this. She's been working all the due diligence reports and all that. So I'm going to let her update that. But before she does, we have had through this period of time at least 4 what I would consider serious inquiries from developers on the list that Jill had sent out. So based on some feedback, just as far as timing, we're talking about the chill in the air, if you will. I think some of these folks were like, well, we might be able to get better terms if we can push this out a few more weeks to get our term sheet to where we can approach you guys with the best possible options. And so we had consulted with Donna, with the mayor, and it seemed prudent and advisable to go ahead and extend out, particularly since we were a little bit delayed on the due diligence report. So from that perspective, we have extended the RFP to June 19th. From that, Jill, if you don't mind picking up on here to kind of update where we're at in terms of the geotech reports and some of the other facets.
Sure, thanks, Paul. So yesterday we sent out an official addendum extending the date from May 15th to June 19th. I've got about 3 more responses. We sent it out to about 46 different individuals. Some are with the same company, but we sent it out to a large list. And so I've gotten 3 responses on that already, that at least that was received and appreciated. When Paul was mentioning the due diligence, around April 15th, I went out on site to meet ATC, who is the firm that the commission hired to do the geotech, soil borings geotech, as well as phase 1 assessments and any hazardous materials that they might find that someone might need to know as far as demolition purposes, if there's asbestos or other things out there. So they went out there, I think it was on the 15th and the 16th. The geotech report was turned in at the end of last week, and had conversations with John Case from ATC throughout the last week and a half, and they're finalizing their report. We should have it by the end of the week as far as what what they may see as far as phase one and hazardous materials. So we should be ready to send those reports out at the beginning of next week as a second addendum, just for due diligence on your part. So I think things are moving along. We did get a slow start, but once they started, they've been moving pretty quickly.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you, Jill. Is there any questions for Jill on the Depot Street revitalization? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to new business. We have an update on transfer of property related to the Depot Street revitalization project. And Mickey Weber, can you talk about that?
I can. Looked at it several different ways, and everybody seems to be in agreement that this project needs to go forward under the auspices of the Redevelopment Commission. In looking at the transfer resolution, I've concluded that the resolution itself was ineffective. The simplest thing to do might be to simply acknowledge that to be the case, and that the property remains titled with the Redevelopment Commission.
So what do we need to do that?
If you want to go that route, you could adopt a resolution to that effect at the next meeting. And if you like, I can prepare a proposal to that end, and you all can see it and consider it at the next meeting.
Does anyone have any questions about that?
So you're saying it wasn't transferred to the city council correctly? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that the resolution that purported to do the transfer specifically references an authority under the Indiana Code for making these intragovernmental transfers, but the statute provision that it references specifically says that provision doesn't apply to redevelopment commissions.
So where does the property reside now then?
I think the answer is that it properly resides with the Redevelopment Commission, but since the transfer resolution and the council's acceptance of the transfer were recorded, the records of the Clark County Recorder's Office reflect that it resides with the city of Charlestown.
So we need the property transferred into redevelopment so we can move forward with the RFP.
Well, we obviously issued the RFP without the Recorder's Office records reflecting it being titled with the Redevelopment Commission, but if we receive a proposal that the Redevelopment Commission wants to move forward on, at that point, I think we all agree that the property will need to reflect title in the Redevelopment Authority. Or Redevelopment Commission.
The easiest way to do this is to do a resolution here with this board.
Yes, the simplest way anyway. There are a couple of ways we've talked about doing it. If the council were to transfer the property back under a similar intergovernmental transfer authority, which we'd also discuss doing, the Redevelopment Commission will still have to adopt a resolution accepting transfer of the property. And so in either of those methods, the Redevelopment Commission will have to adopt a resolution, either declaring the previous transfer to have been ineffective and asserting title over the property, or if the council adopts a resolution transferring the property to the Redevelopment Commission, accepting that transfer.
Well, it
EJ,
seems,
go ahead, John. Sorry.
and maybe
Go
the
ahead.
council needs to weigh in on it. So I wonder if your second option is better.
And that's where we've had discussions, and nobody has voiced any substantive objection to the property ultimately. Nobody has voiced it to me, let's say that, any objection to the property being in the hands of redevelopment. And I don't have any problem with presenting them with a resolution to transfer. In fact, I prepared that resolution last month, and I'm happy to put that on the agenda for the council meeting next month, and then also have a proposed resolution accepting that transfer on this body's agenda for the meeting the following day.
Does that cause us any delays in anything substantive?
It has not, with the RFP being out and with the circumstances being that it's been extended or just now to mid-June. We're not behind as a result of any of that. If we can get that done in a timely fashion going forward, there shouldn't be any delay caused by it.
That would make me feel better, Donna.
Is that how you want to do it too, BJ, as well? Yes. So is that need to be sponsored by you at the next council meeting, or how does that work? What from the council's perspective, BJ?
Mickey, you'd probably be able to answer that, but I think
You're muted.
Well, and one of the council members can sponsor that. The mayor can sponsor that.
Mm-hmm.
We're having discussions, I expect, in between now and the next meeting. So sometime in the next week or two, we can decide who wants to bring that legislation before the council at the next meeting.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So I guess we'll move forward with that resolution going to the council in preparation for the RFPs to come back in. So, okay.
Thanks for the work, Mickey. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, good deal. All right, the next item that we have on the agenda is Clark Nichols' request for a time extension to vacate the Depot Street house property. Brenda Nichols is here to speak on that, so she is going to set that up. Okay, that'll work. Let me see. Okay, so let's see if you can talk.
Can you hear me?
No. Let me mute it, mine.
you have to unmute her.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to address the Redevelopment Commission. On June 26, 2019, Mayor Bob Hall executed an agreement to purchase our property on behalf of the city. As one of the terms, prior to closing, we requested the right to retain use of the house where our business office is housed through July 15, 2021, or 2021, I'm sorry. Mayor Hall provided us a signed letter accepting this term, and then we closed the real estate. We recently learned that the terms of this letter were not included in the vote by the board when they voted on the purchase contract. On April 23rd, I received a letter notifying us that the city had begun developing plans for the property and that we had 60 days to vacate the property. While we were initially, while we were initially upset, of course, well, we were initially upset because we had anticipated using that office for another year. We began immediately looking for office space. We have secured office space in the former Dots Ice Cream Building. We acquired that May 1st. We are currently renovating the space so we can move our office there. While we have every intention of moving, it's going to take us a little longer than June 23rd, 2020 deadline that we were given. With the COVID-19, we have problems that people can't just up and move us. At this time, I would like to request an extension from the Redevelopment Commission to vacate the property. We believe that we would be able to meet the August 31st, 2020 deadline to move. We do have some equipment on the property, and we plan to move everything by then, with the exception of the crane and the forklift. We know the city is wanting to move the dining car, and we were keeping the crane there to load the dining car at no expense to the city when they were ready to do it. Once we have completed loaded the dining car, we will move the crane, as it requires the boom crane to be dismantled prior to moving, and it's massive undertaking. If the city does not wish for us to load the dining car, then we will go ahead and get the crane moved as well by August 31st date. We hope that you can help us in this accommodation.
Thank you, Brenda. There might be some questions. Does anyone have any questions for Brenda?
So Don, I didn't hear
Oh, you did?
everything that she said,
Mhm.
but I don't want her to repeat it by any stretch.
Right.
But my general understanding is that there was some difference between a written agreement about a deadline and what
Mhm.
was included in minutes or conversation in official meeting.
Correct.
And
Yes.
so the only question I mean, I certainly have no problem with, under the current circumstances, letting them finish what they need to do. As long as Mickey weighs in and says that there's no issue there for us, either legally or slowing anything down.
Mhm. Yeah, I wanted Paul to weigh in as well.
Well, I can't speak to any kind of legal ramifications in terms of slowing anything down. I don't see a scenario, particularly with us bumping the RFP back to June 19th. That date, there's a lot of negotiations. The developer would still have to get their financing package together. So I do not think it would affect us from a timing standpoint, John.
Does it affect any due diligence from any of the potential RFP?
The only thing, and Jill, you might be able to speak to this better, was just a right of access, just with COVID issues when they went out to perform due diligence on their current office. They had to delay that. Jill, I'm not 100% sure if they've been able to get back out or not.
At the time, there was someone in the house, and they were concerned not for themselves, but just for them, the people that were in the house, to come in there, with COVID and everything. So we told them to do whatever they could without going in the house as far as doing a hazardous materials testing, but they've done everything else but that.
So I guess to BJ's point, if the commission did desire to grant the extension, it would probably need to be contingent upon full right of access in case us, like if we want to do an updated, like a phase 2, or the potential developer needs to get on there for additional borings or tests.
Exactly.
Mickey.
From a legal standpoint, there's absolutely no reason that you can't do this, and other than providing the time requested, it doesn't impinge on any of the city or the commission's other rights. Given that there's been a somewhat complicated paper trail and some documents that maybe weren't approved by the commission, and it's created some of the confusion, if the commission were inclined to grant the requested extra time, I would suggest that you authorize Donna to sign something on behalf of the commission that reduces this to writing that I could prepare, or bring it back before the full commission for a vote and reduce it to writing at the next meeting. Either of those methods would be fine, but if you were inclined to grant this, I think we should have a written and signed document so that we know what it says and there's not any ambiguity about it.
Right.
Well, Donna, I would make a motion that we allow you to expedite those documents once they're prepared by Mickey.
Okay. So does your motion also include them staying until August 31st with the contingent that we would have access to anybody that needed to do due diligence on the property, John?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a motion on
the motion. You want to just include that from the minutes?
Okay, I will include that in the minutes, or make sure that gets included. So I have a motion on the floor by John Spencer to allow Clark Nichols to extend their time to vacate the property to August 31st, 2020, with the contingency that we would have access, the city would have access, and anyone who is working on that property would have access to do due diligence on the property, and that I would be allowed to sign the document. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
So I have a first by John Spencer, a second by Derek Combs. Let's call for the vote. Derek Combs.
Yes.
Gwen Mosier. You can give me thumbs up. I see you're on mute. There
Yes,
you go.
yes.
Okay. John Spencer
Yes.
and BJ Steele.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion approved unanimously. So we'll get that paper and we will get that to you. All right, thank you. We went over, Paul actually has already went over the report, and I think that you are going to address that in person at the next meeting and do the presentation on that. Is that correct?
That's correct. But just to clarify, that the report due by April 15th has been submitted by the clerk treasurer's office. So we are 100% compliant from that standpoint, and we'll do the TIF annual report presentation at our next, hopefully the next June meeting when we're all.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the proposal for tax increment and debt analysis from Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors. I would entertain, everybody has been, should have received that in their email box. I hope everyone had an opportunity to take a look at that. And so I would entertain a motion that we approve the Baker Tilly financial and municipal review of tax increment and debt analysis for the Charlestown Redevelopment Commission. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Derek. I have a motion by Derek Combs, sorry. Is there a second?
Yes.
Was that John?
Yes, I second.
Okay, John Spencer, second. Any discussion? I would like to have a discussion on this. And Paul, you have worked closely with Baker Tilly on this. Can you explain to the city or to the commission what exactly Baker and Tilly will be doing, why it is needed, and
There are a couple lingering questions. Right now, all of the TIF funds come into one fund. There's been several TIFs created at a time. So we need some segregation of the allocation areas, so to speak. There are some instances of certain TIF parcels we're finding when splits have happened, have not shown up. And so they have analysis and a system that they go through to do that. And the reason that all of this is important is because we've got 3 financings that need to more than likely be taken out. We may be able to take advantage of some very, very low interest rates as well. But in order for us to, frankly, find the best debt terms, we're going to have to solve for X on the revenue side of this. And we think that one other question that we had was based off the water system acquisition. We see where the real property, where the physical assets are, those are on the TIF creation doc. What we don't have is all of the personal property effects. And so trying to ascertain that to make sure when, I'll save you all the boring side of this, but most of your utilities have to file a report for all the counties that they own assets in, personal property, with DLGF, and then it gets distributed to the individual counties. And so we have not seen that yet. And so that level of analysis on the debt piece is important as well. Now, as it relates to the refinance, so getting the baseline set on all the TIFs is important. And we're okay on a revenue standpoint. You can see from the report that the commission was to the good on the revenue and TIF expenses in this last year. But in order to take out some of these bond anticipation notes, we're going to need this analysis done. The proposal in front of you before you today gets us in a position to refinance those debts to get into a long-term fixed rate financing. Right now, on a couple of those, not a couple, all 3, they are what you would call a bond anticipation note, which is just that. It's an interest-only vehicle for you to kind of get some things done before taking that out. And frankly, right now we need to refi those and start paying down the principal on those debts. And so in order to get the optimal term, the optimal interest rate, this is the part of the analysis that needs to get done. It's instead of just calling up a local institution and getting a bond anticipation note, it's kind of taking that to the next level.
okay. And just so everyone is aware, I think you probably have received the debt. I'm not sure if you've received the latest debt. We have the Family Activities Park is the outstanding balance on that is $710,184.19. Springville Manor is $2.5 million. We have the ARC project, the ARC Renaissance project, and it's $1,187,500. So we're looking at a little bit over $4.2 million or $4.3 million that we are going to need to structure into a long-term debt so we can start paying principal. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. And the reason the last issuance couldn't be done that way was because of a parity. So think of it, if you're going for a loan like debt service coverage, the note payable in 2022 or 3, I'm going off memory, for Springville Manor was going to make it impossible for the commission to make all of its debt obligations without long-term financing. And so that's from a positioning standpoint, that is why the last debt had to get done as a bond anticipation note as well. So taking that out, fixed rate financing typically is kind of, is the way to go. So if the commission, wants to proceed with Baker Tilly on that, we'll get on that, immediately. So hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. Donna Coomer, I just wanted you to weigh in on this and just let us know your standpoint because you work with Baker and Tilly, and I understand that it's been a long time since the city has looked at the TIF and for the neutralization. Can you weigh in on that?
That is true. I'm not exactly sure when the last time that we did have a neutralization report, but I think this is a great thing to do. And I've got several years of experience with Baker and Tilly, especially with Dean and Page, and I think they've done a great job in helping to make sound decisions and in some challenging situations that we've been through. I feel like they've been a great asset to the city, and we're pleased to have them back and continue to help us.
Thank you. Is
You're
there any other questions, discussion on this?
Well, I think Donna answered my question. I wondered previously who provided these services to the city, but apparently they have worked with Charlestown in the past.
Yes, they have for several years. I know at least 20 years, and they've done an excellent job. And,
okay, yeah, good.
Great experience.
New organization wanting to come on board. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Anything else? All right. With that being said, I'll go ahead and call for the vote on this. Derek Combs?
Yes.
Gwen Mosier?
Yes.
John Spencer?
Yes.
BJ Steele?
Yes.
Okay. The motion approved unanimously for the Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors to go ahead and perform their analysis. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of partial releases for Springville Manor. And I do have a question for you, Mickey. Can we approve all of these in the same motion, or do they have to be individual motions?
Oh, there we are. I don't think there's any problem if you want to approve them all in the same motion, or if you want to take them up separately. If anyone has any questions about any of the specific releases, for instance, but if everybody seems to be on board, there's no reason you couldn't deal with them all in a single motion.
Okay, thank you. So if there are any specific questions, we can address those, but I'm going to lump these all in the same motion. So I would entertain a motion to approve the partial releases for parcel number 5, number 14, number 19, and number 21 for Springville Manor.
So moved.
I have a first by John Spencer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by BJ Steele. Any discussion?
Similar circumstances apply to all, correct?
Correct. Hearing no other discussion, I'll go ahead and call for the vote on these. Derek Combs,
Yes.
Gwen Mosier,
Yes.
John Spencer,
Yes.
BJ Steele.
Yes.
So motion approved unanimously. And we've come to the end of our meeting unless there is any other discussion. Is there any other discussion items that anyone would like to bring up or talk about?
I have a question if Paul is still with us.
Yes.
Just generally, he talked about the chilling effect that the virus has had on things, and it's maybe not going to have a long-term effect on us. I just wondered how Charlestown compared with the rest of the region or the county, if we are at the same level with the surrounding area.
Yeah, our location and our proximity near River Ridge, the bridge infrastructure, and Metro Louisville, I think it helps insulate us. So if we were sitting in a rural community 35 or 40 minutes from the interstate, I would think we would be in a much worse type position. But, based on just, if you see the magnitude of River Ridge, and I'm pretty partial to it since I used to work there, but if you look at on the Jeffersonville side of what was just basically, cow pastures, if you look where the new Kroger's at, Chick-fil-A, kind of how that has influenced that area, and then it's moving down that way. And we're seeing it right now from a single family and multifamily perspective from the project load. But I think the retail commercial, as you've seen River Ridge clear out the Charlestown into the park over the last couple of years. Obviously, DA Inc. was that first business to locate down in the Charlestown into the park. And in talking with Devin Hilston Smith, Jerry Acey at River Ridge, those folks have indicated, they're submitting the Charlestown into the park with frequency, whereas before it was mostly on the Jeffersonville side. And so with those investments, hopefully come all the ancillary investments that we'll benefit from. Now with that, Josh didn't cover it too much, but our interface with River Ridge in terms of from a utility perspective, in terms of how we coordinate entitlements, we're going to be working a lot closer with those folks in the coming years. And frankly, they're the reason that Charlestown's in the position that it is today, just because of the sheer magnitude of the investment taking place there. I've not seen this year's update, but they're north of a $2 billion annual impact on not only Clark, but the surrounding region. So it's got a monstrous impact on our growth trajectory. And I think I can't predict this with certainty. I think that has a big impact on us, on COVID having a blip, or frankly, any recession, great recession or otherwise. I think having that kind of job creation engine in your backyard is never going to be a bad thing for us. So,
yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Anything else? Well, I will end this meeting like I do every day with my employees. Stay safe, sanitize, and socially distance, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
First by John Spencer, second by BJ Steele. All in favor? Just raise your hand.
Yes.
Thank
ya.
you. Everyone,
Bye.
have a good day. Thanks.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.